4 football fields of wheat. Gone. In the time it takes to watch this video, 1 machine, 1 driver, 1 pass across a Kansas wheat field at harvest time. And the crop that took 6 months to grow disappears into a river of clean grain, moving at a rate that genuinely should not be possible. That machine is a modern combine harvester. And once you understand what is happening inside it, every farm field you ever pass at speed on the highway will stop looking like scenery and start looking like a system. Start with the scale, because the scale alone is almost offensive. A fully loaded John Deere X9 combine harvester sitting at the edge of a field weighs around 36,000 kilograms. That is roughly the same as 6 adult African elephants standing in a row. It rides on tires taller than most people. The cab sits higher off the ground than the roof of a standard pickup truck, and the cutting head bolted to its front, the part that actually touches the crop first, stretches nearly 14 meters wide. That is wider than a standard 4-lane highway. All of it folds down onto a machine that drives itself legally on a public road to the next field when the job is done. But the width is almost a distraction from what is happening at speed. When a combine enters a wheat field at full harvest pace, it is processing an enormous corridor of standing crop every single second. The stalks are not being gathered politely. They are being consumed. Cut, beaten, winnowed, sorted, and stored inside a single moving machine, all at the same time, all without stopping. To understand how, you need to walk through the machine from front to back. Because what happens inside is one of the most layered pieces of mechanical engineering you will find doing ordinary work on an ordinary Tuesday in rural America. It starts at the header. The header is the wide front attachment that reaches out into the standing wheat like 2 open arms. At the very front of it, a rotating reel, a horizontal drum fitted with long steel fingers, sweeps the wheat stalks forward and down toward the cutter bar. The motion is deliberate and rhythmic. Think of it like a giant spinning rake pressing the crop gently but firmly into position before the blade arrives, making sure nothing falls the wrong way and gets missed. The cutter bar is a row of triangular blades running the full width of the header, moving back and forth in rapid scissoring strokes. If you have ever watched a barber's electric clippers running across a scalp, the motion is almost identical. Except this cutter bar is 14 meters wide, and it is slicing through thousands of wheat stalks every second, without pausing, without skipping, without slowing down. Behind the cutter bar, the cut wheat falls onto the header platform. A large horizontal auger, a rotating spiral screw, runs the full width of the header, grabbing the fallen crop and pulling it inward from both sides toward the center, funneling everything into a narrow throat at the middle of the machine called the feeder house. The feeder house is a steel tunnel running upward at an angle from the front of the combine into its main body. Inside it, a chain conveyor drags the entire mass of cut wheat, stalks, grain heads, loose seeds, dust, and everything else upward and into the belly of the machine. This is where things get violent. Inside the main body of the combine, the crop meets the threshing cylinder. This is a large, heavy, spinning drum wrapped in steel bars called rasp bars, rotating at high speed inside a curved grate called a concave. The gap between the spinning drum and the concave is measured in millimeters. Not centimeters, millimeters. The gap is adjustable by the operator depending on the crop type, the moisture content, and the conditions of the day. The wheat is dragged through that gap with force. The rasp bars beat the crop against the concave in rapid, repeated impacts. That beating knocks the grain kernels free from the seed heads, the part of the stalk that holds the actual wheat berry you eventually eat. The straw, the chaff, the broken stalks, all of it passes through the system, but the grain starts separating away. Here is the thing most people never realize about a combine harvester. Everything you have seen so far, the header, the feeder house, the threshing cylinder, is not the hard part. Cutting wheat is straightforward. Moving wheat is mechanical. The part that determines whether this machine earns its place in the field is the separation problem, and it is a harder problem than it looks. A wheat kernel and a piece of wheat chaff look nothing alike to human eyes. Inside a moving, vibrating machine filled with dust and broken straw and humidity, they behave almost identically. Both are light. Both are small. Both tumble the same way under force. Separating one from the other, cleanly, at a rate of thousands of kilograms per hour, without losing marketable grain out the back, and without letting chaff contaminate the tank. That is the engineering challenge the entire machine was built to solve. Everything else is just feeding material toward that one moment of separation. This problem is not new. The history of how it was solved is worth knowing, because it puts the modern machine in a different light entirely. For most of human history, separating grain from straw was done by hand, on a flat stone floor, using nothing but wind and patience. Workers would beat harvested stalks against a hard surface to knock the grain loose, a process called threshing. Then they would gather the loose mixture of grain and chaff and toss it into the air. The wind carried the lighter chaff away. The heavier grain fell back to the floor. This was called winnowing. It was slow, exhausting, and entirely dependent on the weather cooperating. In the early 1800s, mechanical threshing machines appeared that could beat the grain free from the straw using spinning drums, replacing the beating by hand. But you still needed a separate machine, or a separate crew, to clean the grain afterward. The harvesting, threshing, and cleaning were three distinct operations, done in three separate locations, often on 3 separate days. The combine, short for combined harvester thresher, existed to collapse all three into one. Early versions appeared in the 1830s in the United States, pulled by teams of horses or mules, requiring crews of over 30 men to operate. They were slow. They were unreliable. They broke constantly. But the idea was correct. One passed through the field, one machine, grain in one end, clean seed out the other. A refinement of mechanical systems followed over the next century. Steam power replaced horse teams. Internal combustion replaced steam. Hydraulics replaced manual adjustments. GPS, guided auto steer, replaced the human driver managing the wheel. The machine that once needed 30 men now needs one, with an operator sitting in a climate-controlled cab with a touchscreen dashboard, monitoring grain loss sensors in real time. Back inside the modern machine, the separation problem gets solved in 2 distinct stages. After the threshing cylinder does its initial work, the broken crop mass moves through a set of long, spinning rotors, running the full length of the machine body. These rotors tumble the material continuously, like a very aggressive clothes dryer, allowing remaining grain kernels that the threshing cylinder did not release to fall through grates by gravity. The larger straw, too bulky and rigid to fall through, gets carried further back and expelled out the rear of the combine in a thick, continuous mat onto the field. That mat of straw is not waste. It breaks down into the soil over winter, returning organic matter to the ground for next year's crop. What falls through the rotor grates lands on the cleaning shoe. This is a series of angled, perforated metal sieves stacked beneath the rotor section, vibrating back and forth in a constant shaking motion. At the same time, a powerful fan inside the machine blows a continuous stream of air upward through the sieves from below. The chaff, the light, papery husks, and fine dust catches the airflow and gets blown out the rear of the machine. The grain, heavier and denser, resists the wind and falls through the sieve holes onto a clean grain pan below. Picture a gold prospector shaking a pan over a river. The heavy gold sinks. The sand and light gravel wash away with the water. That is the exact same principle, run at industrial scale inside a machine moving through a field, measured in tons per hour instead of grams per minute. Except the combine does not need a river. It brings its own wind. The clean grain that reaches the bottom of the cleaning shoe is carried by a grain elevator, a bucket conveyor running vertically inside the machine frame, up into the grain tank sitting on top of the combine. The grain tank on a large modern combine holds somewhere between 14,000 and 17,000 liters of clean wheat. That is large enough to fill a small backyard swimming pool to the brim. But the combine does not stop to empty that tank. When the tank approaches capacity, a long unloading auger swings out from the side of the machine at an angle, extending outward like an arm over the adjacent crop rows. A chase grain cart, a large trailer pulled by a separate tractor running parallel in the field, pulls alongside the moving combine and matches its speed exactly. The two machines travel side by side through the wheat, the combine still cutting, still threshing, still cleaning, while tons of grain pour through the unloading auger into the cart beside it. The transfer takes only a few minutes. The combine never pauses. The grain cart peels away when full and heads toward the semi-truck waiting at the field edge. Another cart pulls alongside. The process repeats seamlessly until the field is finished. One machine, harvesting, separating, cleaning, storing, and unloading simultaneously, without a full stop from the moment it enters the field to the moment it exits. From a single long harvest day, a modern combine can process an area of wheat large enough to cover over 60 standard football pitches. The grain that took an entire growing season to develop moves from standing stalk to clean seed in approximately 2 seconds per pass through the threshing drum. Every loaf of bread on the supermarket shelf you walked past this week passed through this machine. Every bag of pasta, every box of cereal, every flour tortilla. The wheat inside all of it spent roughly 2 seconds inside a spinning drum before it was ever touched by a human hand. That is what the combine represents, not just efficiency, a complete compression of time between the soil and the table. And the grain does not stop moving the moment it leaves the field. The system that receives it includes the grain carts, the semi-trucks, the inland grain elevators, the rail lines, and the export terminals at the ports, and it is just as precisely engineered and just as invisible as the machine that harvested it. A single bushel of Kansas wheat can pass through 6 different handling systems before it reaches a bakery on another continent. That journey is worth understanding, because it is just as surprising as the machine you just watched eat an entire field in a single afternoon. If this video changed the way you see a harvest field, subscribe. There is a lot more hidden engineering exactly like this on this channel, and you are clearly the kind of person who wants to understand